Discussion here in studio. We're now focusing on Uhuru Kenyatta's cabinet. President Uhuru Kenyatta, I beg your pardon, is this morning expected to meet the leadership of the National Assembly to chart the way forward for the vetting of cabinet nominees. The members of parliament are expected to break for their Christmas holiday this December. President Uhuru Kenyatta is expected to meet the House leadership with a possible proposal to extend the date of adjournment to December 21st to make space for the vetting of cabinet nominees. The opposition coalition NASA, however, says it will not forward its members to the committee, which is expected to vet members of the cabinet. Let's listen in to what John Badi had to say.
I've declined to nominate our membership to that committee because, as far as we are concerned, that committee is not necessary. How? Because the office that is supposed to appoint the cabinet secretaries is vacant as we speak.
Parliament has a clear role under Article 95 of the Constitution. So if the minority party will not present the names of their members, it's actually they are absconding their duties. Because that's what they are supposed to do. They are supposed to represent their people.
And in studio with me this morning, we have Professor George Wajakoya, Oliver Kipchumba, and Mr. Herman Wanyora. Let me begin with you, Professor Wajakoya. NASA says it will not be part of the vetting process of cabinet, rightfully so, because they do not recognize the presidency of Uhuru Kenyatta. But whether or not they are part of this vetting process, Jubilee says they will go forward with the reconstitution of Parliament. But before we get to NASA, what new changes are you expecting in the new cabinet?
First of all, I have to say that the president has looked into his eye, go in his toilet in the morning and look himself in the mirror and see himself and say, what am I going to do and who am I going to appoint? Secondly, he should pull the carpet in the State House and remove any chaff that has been there. What I mean is the brokers and the middlemen. And then thirdly, he should look at the .com community, even though Kenyans is progressively moving forward to usher in new generation, young generation. But what the president should do is he should look at the older generation, people in the army command who have retired, people in the police force who have retired, in the intelligence services who have retired, and look at key figures like Kinuthia Mbugua. Look at retired NSIS director Boynet. Look at Brigadier Karangi. And come in and say, if I appointed some of these men back in the State House, either as cabinet secretaries or not, will they neutralize this .com community that has surrounded the State House and even taken it hostage? Do we need to look at responsibility from wisdom? Look at the way we are, me and Manyora, we are more or less same age, and we reason the same way. A young man here was my schoolmate in Kiganjo, in Kenya School of Law. The reason is very well, maybe because we are sitting close to each other, though he has got his own mind. The president should look into older generation, the Kibaki legacy, some of the Kibaki advisors, and bring them on board to put some sanity in the State House. Similarly, Ruto should also go and pull the red carpet, remove some of those undesirables that we know, and plant men of honor and integrity, and then come in and say, well, what do we do? That's number two. Number three, now that NASA is saying that they have to boycott, then why are they on salary and why are they in parliament? If they don't recognize Uhuru, and I'm not speaking for Uhuru, I've never met the man before. I'm neither NASA nor Jubilee. Let these men who are misguiding Raila Odinga, particularly the likes of Mbadi, who even failed in his elections, and we know that, shut up and go home. Because you cannot come in and look at what has been constituted, look at the president who has been sworn in, and then just keep on dragging this man. It is time for some people to come and see reality, that Kenya has got a government, the government has been elected. If there is any other way to do things, they should be done constitutionally. But when it comes to now boycotting the cabinet, boycotting those meetings, and yet you have appointed some sycophants in East African community and put the list there, who is going to vote these people for?
Right.
Double standards is what I'm seeing here.
All right. Kipchumba, it's a tough balancing act for President Uhuru Kenyatta between appeasing the opposition seemingly with their constitution of cabinet, balancing succession politics, but also coming up with a cabinet that will cement the legacy that he wishes to leave in this second and final term. What would the president be considering in that cabinet?
From where I sit, I think the president should consider just two things. One, his legacy. Two, his legacy. That is the whole thing he should be considering now. And if you listen to his speech, the near 1 hour speech, much delved into what he wants to leave behind, and the president he will want to be defined as he was. That is the greatest thing we can leave Kenyans with. For Kibaki, we now know that he came with a constitution, he came with the free primary education. That is how we define Kibaki. And the infrastructure on which Jubilee has taken off quite well. So I think that is what he ought to look at. The second thing is that he ought to look at the issue of succession politics. He must have a cabinet in place that will be able to work, men and women who can work, even within the environment of succession politics. At times, succession politics is very vicious. It needs men and women who can withstand the pressure, men and women who have their eyes on the target. They will not take off their eyes because succession politics is around them. That, I think, is one of the key areas. Secondly, the president has a chance now to do away with people who have been in cabinet just for the simple reason of enjoying privileges. We need people who bring something on that table. It is called a cabinet for a reason. The people who can help the president deliver on his dream and vision. And the 10-point Jubilee manifesto, it is now supposed to be the gospel of those people he'll appoint. He cannot appoint people who will not be able to deliver the Jubilee manifesto. And these appointments should be crafted in a way that they reflect the Kenya, the country, they reflect the regions we have in this country, they reflect what we call the ethnic balance and inclusivity. In that cabinet, anybody looking at it should be able to look at it and see, this is the Kenya. Are we together?
Right.
And I think these ask the question, who are these people? We can't speculate, but as Professor said, he needs to be very honest with himself.
All right.
A cabinet that will work for us. And to the Mbadis of this world, I think Mbadi and his ilk cannot be allowed to speak from both sides of the mouth. They should smell the coffee and know that we are over with politics. He cannot act as a minority leader and at the same time tell us, we are not going to tolerate with the appointments, because who is taking Kenyans for fools? You cannot tell us today, I am drawing my salary as a house leadership, as a minority leader, and you come back and say we do not recognize that the president is there. I think we are done with that debate. It is long gone. He should smell the coffee and know that we are moving forward as a nation. And to Raila Odinga, he is a statesman. He should now not listen to lyrical sycophants. Politics is over. What we need to do now is to build this country. We have had the longest political duration, 8 months, or nearly a year. We need now to go back and build the nation. And building the nation, you cannot build the nation when we have grandstanding from people like Mbadi.
Right.
And it is the same grandstanding that got us where we nearly went. So I think we need to move forward. The president should name his cabinet and we move forward.
All right, all right. Mr. Manyora, of course, even in the naming of cabinet, there is an expectation of a national outlook within the constitution of cabinet. But once again, issues of rewarding poll losers, party loyalists, and not to be referred to as political rejects are also being seen here. There's a lot of political mileage or political capital here. There's a lot of rather significant personalities who defected from the opposition to back President Uhuru Kenyatta, the likes of Hassan Omar, the likes of Paul Otuoma. We're hearing now that Babu Namamba might also be among the ones in the lineup to take cabinet positions. How is this, likely to affect the situation, considering that we're also hearing that President Uhuru Kenyatta might just decide to up the number of cabinet slots from 19 to the maximum 22, again, also making more spaces and more positions to reward party loyalists?
I think to understand what will inform cabinet formation and government in general is that government is on combat mode. Government is on combat mode because it is supposed to be fighting those who are raising issues of legitimacy. So the government is going to have to fight the NASA brigade. Government is also on combat mode because William Ruto, who is a central part of this government, is going to be looking at 2022, and he has to fight his way to 2022. And I think this is going to inform the kind of, unless I don't understand politics, but we are all strange people. This then would inform the kind of men and women they are likely to put on board. Again, they are also in a very difficult situation because they promised almost everybody a job. And these jobs are just limited. So even as you say, they may stretch from 1922, which is the maximum allowed, it will still not be enough. But they must obviously reward people like Abab Namwamba, Otroma, Hassan Omar, and the rest of these defectees and so on and so forth. But the overall guidance, in my thinking, will be fighting the people who are bringing the legitimacy issues, NASA, and fighting through to 2022. And then if you are crafting a cabinet, you must be looking at those things. Of course, the other minor considerations of regional balance in between that, yeah.
All right. We don't seem to agree with that, Professor Wajakoya, the issue of rewarding these party lawyers.
I really feel so bad to be a Kenyan. Sometimes I don't know what to say, but my umbilical cord is here. The blood that came with me from my mother's womb is in this soil. If I hear this issue of rewarding, the word rewarding, sycophants, failures, fugitives, people who have no merit, yet we have young men like Kipchumba here who can be appointed and deliver. You go and take psychos who are going to sing your music and be in the opposition, turn the opposition into something else, create dilemma. Come on, for God's sake. Can't the president go out there and pick men of honor and put them in the positions they deserve? People of professional etiquette, rather than looking at the Ababus. What has Abab done in this world? Really? Otuoma. What is Otuoma? Just because they are political sycophants who failed from Jubilee and crossed over, are we going to be recycling the whole system? Hell no. Let the president come out as a young man and look at people who can deliver. People who can stand firm and say, hey, here is Matiang'i, a man who came in who was not even known. A man has come up and really delivered. Let him look at the Matiang'is, not these failures, for God's sake. We are going to go back again into the opposition. I'm running away from the opposition, and you want to take me back there?
All right. I just want to ask you a very simple question, which is what we're asking our viewers this morning, Professor. Are you happy with any of the cabinet secretaries in the current cabinet, and why?
Not at all. The likes of Rachel Mamo, look at her. What has she brought in this country in terms of national defense? Look at some of the ministers that are not even known where they came from. There are ministers who have failed this country on foreign policy. There are ministers who have failed this country on national security. Those ought to be shown the door and to go for good. In the United States, for example, or even in the UK, people who lead defense portfolio are retired generals or men who have served in the foreign service, men who have actually been in the army itself for national security, men who will come in and stand and be qualified as men who can handle issues. You don't just go and pick up something from somewhere because of regional or gender equity or what have you. Put men of, look at people like Brigadier Karangi, for example. If you put that man in defense, the country will stand because these are men who have been tested. They have been out there and they know the logistics of this country. They know the security of this country. Put Matiang'i there again. Let him run things the way they have been run. But don't go and put people that even I don't want to know them. Even if you took me to a class 7, to standard 7 with a standard 7 kid to ask me who is the minister for what, I'll tell you I don't know. Because they have no national acumen in them.
All right.
So half of this cabinet has to go, or 3/4.
All right. Kipchumba, we're expected to have more politicians in this new cabinet. Your thoughts on that?
First of all, this idea of politicians or not politicians is neither here nor there, Michelle, to be very honest. Because what we need are men and women who can deliver on the presidential, whatever the president promised people during the campaign. Whether they are politicians or not, Because look at it this way, we have people in this cabinet who are not politicians, but they have not delivered. And most of the people who have not delivered in cabinet are not politicians. So whether they'll be politicians or not, what we need are people who can deliver. The fact that somebody has been a politician should not be used as a basis of whether they should join cabinet or not. It is neither here nor there. All we need is somebody who has the acumen, the intelligence, who has the intelligent capacity to deliver, and who has a track record proven, because we cannot go again fishing people from the ponds to come and occupy very high offices. When they fail, we look like it is a miracle. No, they must have had some results somewhere.
Right.
Because anything is as a result of something you did before. You cannot perform miracles if you have never performed one. So we expect people, whether politicians or not, to be people who will present something, who will inject to cabinet new ideas, who will be a breath of fresh air. We want this to be a chance where the president can use it to break away from the yoke of corruption, to break away from the political brokers who at times try to hold hostage this country. I think that, therefore, the discussion of whether they are politicians or they are what have you, they are technocrats, should not come up.
All right, we have to wind up. Mr. Manyora, let me give you the closing comment here. The president is obviously going to use this cabinet to cement his legacy. What dockets specifically do you feel he should put special emphasis on?
I think when you talk of legacy and performing ministers, we want to assume somebody wants ministers to work. No, nobody wants ministers to work. These are just jobs you are given. Then you can steal a little money and buy a nice home in Runda. But nobody expects you to work. If Uhuru wants people to work, why can't he give me a job? Good. And allow me to work? Good. Because I can do the job better than all these fellows. Right. But he will not give me one. Two, even if he were to give me, which is most unlikely, he won't want me to work. Government is constituted to make people eat. So once you are made a minister, you must facilitate the eating by way of projects in your ministry, by way of tenders and all those kind of things. Not for you to work. If you attempt to work, you are shown the door. So, and legacy, you see, legacy presupposes you are going to do good things for your country, that you have a vision for your country. And that also presupposes that, the politics of the country are right. If you don't fix the politics, if you don't fix governance, there is no development. And without development and things that are associated with it, there can be no legacy. So if the president wants legacy, he must fix the politics. Issues of governance. He must address the grievances from half of this country that feel they are being left out. Once you fix the politics, then you can begin talking about legacy, you can begin talk about development, because then you'll be doing things for the people. But government, so far from 63, has never been constituted to do things for the people. Government has been constituted to allow a few get what they can get out of government. So then you cannot talk about legacy.
That is something that needs to change. Very briefly, Kipchumba, we need to wind up.
Michelle, I think we need to correct something that the good professor said. Government is not constituted for it to eat. It is constituted for it to serve the people of Kenya. And we have seen the projects. We have the SGR. It is serving this country. We have the major roads, the infrastructure, the water. You talk about the Huduma Center. They are serving people. And then again, the president has fired some people from cabinet because of this, the eating, he calls eating. And we know people went home. Around 4 cabinet ministers. Therefore, it is not in order for us to sit and assume that a government is formed. That social contract is there to enhance the lives of people. And that is what Jubilee government is doing.
Professor Wajakoya, very briefly.
Yeah, I think I may second what Manyora said, and I do sort of take his line of argument, because there have been a lot of truths. And I may also come to my friend and tell him that even those who are sacked, some of them are back as governors, but let me not go into that history. It's very bad. The president has an opportunity, and I'm addressing this to him straight away. He has an opportunity to redeem this country. Let him not only look into those that sang to the tunes. Let him go outside the box and look into the opposition and ask some members of the opposition to join the government. We have the likes of Musalia Mudavadi, we have Kalonzo Musyoka, we have even Raila himself. This is a country that belongs to all of us, not just because one has been elected or others have been selected. The cake issue should not be there. Let him come out and say, Am I going to leave a legacy? Am I going to extend my hand to these brothers and sisters who are on the other side of the aisle? Am I going to choose people who, am I going to choose priests and bring them into the format like the, is it anti-corruption? Who is that guy?
The Ethics and Anti-Corruption Committee.
Wabukala, a man who is supposed to be in the church to preach wine and spirit, being in charge of corruption, a man who is supposed to ask for forgiveness. Let us have common sense and reach out to every Kenyan, reconcile the country, do some kind of dialogue. It's not too late to do dialogue with Raila Odinga. It's not too late to come and sit down. Now that some people have been saying no sharing of Nusumukati. Nusumukati, what is Nusumukati? It is the government and taxpayers' money. We are all Kenyans. It's high time Uhuru also came out and said, let me sit down with the opposition and let us chart the way forward before he constitutes the government. Let him even ask Raila for 3 posts. Give me 3. I'll give them. This is Kenya, and that's what we need to see.
All right, so we'll be keeping an eye on that. President Uhuru Kenyatta will be meeting those leaders of the National Assembly this morning, an event we're keeping an eye on. But thank you so much for joining us, gentlemen, in studio. That is Professor George Wajakoya, who is a lawyer. We also have lawyer Oliver Kipchumba, and last but not least, Mr. Herman Manyora, who is a lecturer and a political analyst. Great to have you in the studio this morning.